All have a purpose. God designed you with limits to need other people. He designed you with limits and to need other people, but that does not mean that you are a slave to those limits or a slave to other people. It means that within those limits and through those relationships, you can do something great. And everything God said and everything God decided and everything God thought was based on that purpose that He has for you. He was not out to restrict your fun, but to maximize your mission. And God gave the law. And part of that law was, hey, on Friday evening, you hang it up. You worked hard all week. Now take a break. That was not to restrict. It was to release us into His rest. When it came to the land, He said, hey, 1 year out of every 7 is supposed to lie dormant because God knew that if you overwork the land, you'll kill it. And they didn't starve because God took care of them, but because He knew that the land needed a limit. Financially, God said you can do more if you're generous. And that makes no sense to us because we live without margin. And God was saying, hey, respect the margin and I will bless you. But what happened in the Bible? They disobeyed. Israel disobeyed. Why? Did they hate God? No, they didn't hate God. Did they forget the law? No, they didn't forget the law. They knew the law. They forgot their purpose. They saw the limits and they understood their relationships, but they forgot the purpose. They got a new purpose, and consequently they followed after a new God, which led to their downfall, right? Their utter downfall. And God's answer was to send them into exile, into Babylon, where they finally rested and found margin, and then they returned. And God is calling many of us to learn to take a break, and it feels like exile. And it feels so unnatural. But that's only because the unnatural pace we have been living, and we've been living it for so long, feels natural. And it is so important. It's not about just fixing your schedule or managing your self-care. This is about your very soul. And Jesus understood this and He knew this, and we're going to look at His teaching over the next several weeks and we're going to dive into it. But I want you to look at this one verse today as we wrap this up. In Matthew 22, you've heard this hundreds of times probably. Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. And that's the way God wants us to prioritize our lives. Whatever we do and whatever it is that we feel is so important, just remember, at the center of all of it is me, God says. I need to be at the center of all of it. And you need to have enough left over so that you have energy for me. And you need to live in the way that I prescribe. And when you live in the way that I prescribe, you will have margin. And here's the killer principle for all of us in this series, is that as your margins get thinner and thinner, so does your relationship with God. Because relationships happen in the margins, even spiritual ones.